Today's guest is an author, a multi-award winning global expert, a certified speaking professional, and a virtual presenter and facilitator. She has authored multiple books, works with companies on leadership development, and trains middle managers to be high-performing, purposeful, and productive. We already know the ultimate answer is 42. So today we're going to find out from Sally Foley-Lewis what the ultimate question we should be asking in our business. What's up, everybody? Michael Johnson here with the 42 podcast, where we already know the answer and we're on a quest to find the ultimate question. I'm excited you're here with me today as we explore the ultimate question with another amazing expert and business owner. Today we have Sally Foley-Lewis joining us on the show. Let's get Sally on the stage. Sally, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, such a pleasure to be with you, Michael. Thank you for having me on podcast 42.
Absolutely. I'm excited to get to your ultimate questions that you prepared for us today. But first, we've got to kind of go back a ways and figure out and learn this crazy winding road, this awesome journey you've been on to get yourself to this point. So you got to fill us in. Give us all the juicy details.
Oh, wow. Where to begin? I think if you were to lay a timeline out of my history from a career perspective, there's a golden thread that weaves all through it, and that is one of service. And I always seem to have landed myself in roles or positions where I'm helping someone to achieve something, and it just fills my cup. And it's one of my number one values is service. You know, even when I was a very little girl and I was in Brownies, which is the precursor to Girl Scouts or Girl Guides, and I very quickly became they used to call them sixers, which is like the leader of the little group. And I was the sixer of the yin yarns. So that might prompt a few thoughts for people. A little orange fairy creature, that was in the jungle or in the rainforest. And so, but even in that role, when I don't even know how old I was, like 9 or something, I was already wanting to step forward, not to be the leader, but because I was in service, and service tends to push you forward in order to be the one that gives that aid or gives that help or helps set a direction. And so I was always in a leadership role from a very, very young age. And even as I went through my teen years, I landed in youth representation positions for youth organizations. And so I would be sitting around the table with, crusty old people as the youth representative, right? And
Sure.
All fired up thinking I was all that. It was very humbling sometimes, which is what one needs. And I took those licks, which I needed. But when you plot it on a timeline, you can see that it's always been in service of whatever. And so the journey to be where I am right now, which is someone who is absolutely, I will go to the mattresses. I will, I will absolutely stand up for the middle, because I have also been a leader who has served in the middle, and I've also been a CEO who has had to lead mid-level leaders. And so to me, it is the number one position that needs support. It needs more guidance. It has an incredibly unique level of power that is not leveraged enough. And so the journey to being a middle management leadership expert comes from a very long line of serving, and by default being in leadership positions. So yeah.
Right. Wow. I mean, that's cool that you could kind of trace it back all the way to the earlier days. I mean, you're clearly a leader, and you clearly found that along the way. And what do you find in working with both the senior leadership and the middle management leadership that is the big difference? What's the defining feature between those two groups? Because obviously you work with both of them.
I do. What I find is the difference is from a senior leadership perspective, there's a pressure to bear for them to set the right strategy. You know, it's not that they're not without fears. It's not that they're not without their humanness, right? They are humans after all, and sometimes we forget our bosses are human. But it's you know, their job is to set the medium to long range strategy, and there's a lot of fear in that. There's a lot of predicting of the future, which is an impossible task in a lot of ways, and to make real high level decisions that make sense, that make money, that make the outcome that is desired from that particular business. Whereas middle level leaders, their job is to translate it and implement it and help get it implemented.
Right.
And so that to me is one of the biggest differences. And when you say it like that, oh, well, they just set the strategy, they just implement it. There's a whole nuance around that.
Absolutely. Well, and you've kind of started to talk a little bit about your business, and you know, you can barely see there, and I got to see it before, but you can barely see the little hamburger behind you. There it is. And so tell us a little bit about why you've got a hamburger there.
So here's one I prepared earlier. No, I use the hamburger as the metaphor, and it's also a framework. And so to me, middle managers are like burgers. The best is in the middle. Now, before anyone jumps up and down and says, but what about senior leadership in the front line? Well, you do need the buns to make a burger. So yeah. I'm not dismissive of buns. I even have buns in the framework that I talk about.
Right.
But to me, middle managers are very much like burgers. The best is in the middle. And then from that metaphor, it helps people. It's a sticky metaphor. It really does resonate with a lot of people. A burger is a timeless food item. Even if we have an association with a certain brand or a certain type of burger, at the end of the day, you know what a burger is. But also the framework is that I have 5 key ingredients and secret sauce for high performing middle managers. And so each ingredient represents a particular aspect that influences one's self-leadership and therefore then their leadership. So, and then the relationship to the top and the bottom as well. So leading up and leading down.
I love that. And how long have you been doing this? I mean, I don't know a lot of people that put a lot of focus into that middle ground, which is so important. And as you've explained, is critical for the system to operate and work well. But how long have you been doing this?
Oh, specifically working with mid-level leaders is probably over a decade now,
Wow.
but it's been longer than that. It's actually my realization, you know, as you go through your career and you do different things, or you're experimenting, or you need to escape from one job just to get out, so you go to another job. Who hasn't done that, right?
Right.
Whatever the journey's been, one of the real turning points for me to know that it was mid-level leaders was every time I was delivering a corporate training program where I was an internal corporate trainer for a company. Whenever the mid-level leaders were in the room with me, I had the best time. We had so much fun. It just clicked. And it wasn't that I didn't like delivering programs for senior leaders or junior staff. There was just something about mid-level leaders. They ate it up. They were hungry for it. They, you know, whether they were gunning for a promotion and wanted to learn so they could grow and go, or whether it's like, I just need some help to get this right. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to do my job and do it well. What can I do to make it easier or better? And so it was kind of those two cohorts in a lot of ways. Yes, I get a couple that would go, I hate people. I didn't want to be a leader. Get me out of here. And so we talk about a strategy to exit with dignity and pride and get them back into the widget making expertise that they missed. So, and I'm all for that. If you get into leadership positions and you have to move out of doing X into leading people and you find you don't like it, then let's get you out.
Right.
Someone else does want to be there. And if you have more joy, therefore more productivity doing what you love doing, then let's do it. So
Right.
yeah, so it was really probably, I've been doing this sort of work for over 20 years, but really honing in on middle managers and mid-level leadership. It's always been there, but really a decade. And then the burger has really been about, how do I amplify the visibility and the importance of this cohort? And COVID helped, to be honest. I know it hasn't helped many people, but it helped me, because what it did was it really shone a light on how little support mid-level leaders got.
Sure.
When we all had to go home, and then there was a whole bunch of middle managers who went, I can't see them. Are they actually working? That was a bit of a rhetoric for a while, where it really shone a light on how little organizations were actually developing the leadership capability of their mid-level leaders, because we had middle managers who were focused on activity, not outcome.
Right.
And they were focused on KPIs instead of people. And it was really quite fascinating. And that just amplified it even more inside of me, that we need to find a way to get a message that sticks to help middle managers be better leaders.
Yeah. I love that. And great work serving a group of people that really need that attention. And hopefully the leaders out here listening to the show can also see that that's the case, that their middle managers could use some support and use the education and the direction and guidance. And that's pretty cool that you serve those people.
Thank you.
I'm excited to get in now to the ultimate question that you've prepared. So we're going to move into that section. You've had some time to prepare and think about the ultimate question that you believe we should be asking in our business. And so I'm going to give you a chance to share with us what you prepared for your business ultimate question. So what did you come up with? Okay, let's take a quick break for a message from Business Choreography. A lot of business owners know events could help them, but they're guessing at the format. Should it be a webinar, a workshop, a masterclass, a challenge, a live training, a networking event? The answer depends on your business, your audience, and your offer, and the kind of conversation you want to create. That's why Business Choreography created the free event type field guide. It's designed to help experts, coaches, consultants, educators, speakers, and service providers start choosing the right kind of event instead of just guessing. Get it free at eventchoreo.com/field guide. That's eventchoreo.com/field guide. Now, back to the conversation.
So I really sat down and thought, when in my own, I'm in a volunteer role as a president of an organization, and it really made me think about if we lost all our members, right? And so, and in my business, if it just all disappeared tomorrow, who would genuinely miss it and why? I think one of the biggest things as business owners is, have we strayed off course? Have we built more things to try and attract more buyers or clients or customers that we've actually diluted the core purpose? So my business question was, if my business disappeared tomorrow, who would genuinely miss it and why? And I wrote that question from the intent of, who do you need to get back to and why?
Right.
What do you need to get back to and why? And I think that as business owners, it's a nice leveler to ask yourself, what do I need to remove as opposed to what more do I need to add or do? A great mate of mine, Donna McGeorge, has got this brilliant model called red brick thinking, and she talks about removal. And so it's just, I wasn't thinking of it at the time. It's just come to me now about Donna's work, but it is actually about, we live in a world of doing more, when maybe actually let's get back to what we should be doing, that really asks that question around who will genuinely miss us and why. Yeah.
So if we ask that question, and I always encourage the audience to, part of why they're here is to hear some different perspectives and different questions that hopefully will brighten their perspective and see things in a different way. So if they ask that question and they get the answer, if their business disappeared tomorrow, who would miss it? So they get the answer. Now, what do you propose they do with that answer?
Well, I think it's an audit, isn't it? It's a bit of an auditing process, and just say, well, I just had a Marie Kondo, does it bring you joy moment, right? But it's looking at what if they would miss me, then asking yourself, or if this particular cohort or customer or client would miss me, then how am I staying connected with them? How am I serving them? And am I serving them in a way that resonates for them? So to me, it's about staying front of mind with and for your customer or your client. Right. And it can also look at, you just look at your client list or your customer list, and who have you hung out with the most, and who's been, there's all different ways of prioritizing, categorizing your clients, your A list, your B list, whatever works for you. But it's about actually, do I really want to be serving that client? Will they really miss me? And asking also, honestly, will I miss them?
Sure.
And why? Is it just a client for the money, and therefore does it bring me joy? Is it serving the purpose? Is it serving my greater good? Is it adding to my legacy, or is it actually just paying a bill? And no judgment either way. We all got to eat, right? We all got to pay the rent and the mortgage, and there's no judgment there. But just know it. Right. I think just having it front of mind is better than just wondering why we get to the end of an engagement or the end of a piece of work, and are we feeling drained, or are we feeling, as my made up word, which is exhaustillerated. We're exhausted because we've put everything into it, but we're also exhilarated because it was a really good piece of work.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to unpack in that, from the perspective of what happens if I find out that nobody misses me. Oh my gosh, that's an interesting path to have to go down. If we're gone tomorrow. And then the other side of, you mentioned, if I like who I'm working with, if I look at that and I go, okay, this group of people would miss our service, miss what we do for them, but I don't really like them. And I think that's an interesting perspective. I've had a couple of businesses along my path and my journey where I looked at that, and I think I did finally end up asking that question: if this business was gone tomorrow, who would miss it? And as we evaluated it, we kind of felt like the answer was no one, and we ultimately shut that business down. And I'm sure that was maybe an over exaggeration of a thought at the time, that there were clearly going to be people that missed the business being open. But as a general whole, I think we felt like nobody would. And that was an indication to us that it was time to move on. And it was time to, put a lid on it and say, okay, we ran a course with that journey, and it was time to put it away. So I think that's a really interesting question. And I can see times that we came across that question, and when we got the answer, it was an indication as to what we should do next.
And I do think also, I think also it doesn't make it all or nothing either. It doesn't have to be binary. It could be, I need to put it away for now. Right now, this is not serving who I thought it was serving. It's not serving me. It doesn't mean it has to shut up shop and completely go away. It just means right now, no one's going to miss this. So I don't need to be putting energy into it, or time, which is money, into this. It could be that, it's one of the things that I've really come to mind just recently with my volunteer hat on, where there's a whole range of programs that we offer. And because of the movement of our membership through our through our organization, there's one program, no one's going to be doing that program. And I had to say to the program owner, don't take it personally. We just don't have anyone ready. But if you watch, and I said, my prediction is, my little crystal, ball here, my prediction is 18 months to 2 years, we're going to have a whole cohort ready to go. And we've just landed there right now. And guess what's happened? Luckily, I read it right. But it was an educated guess of right now, no one is missing that because we actually don't have anyone for it. And that's okay. We're not throwing it out. It's a brilliant program. We just don't have anyone ready for it. And so to your point, and I think sometimes also if we do look at something and we say, actually, no one's missing this. No one's asking for it. No one's missing for it. It's really not serving. It's actually consuming a certain amount of resources that could be rediverted elsewhere. And while you may have a bit of a grieving process for something that you've put a whole lot of effort into, it's almost like just remembering the life cycle of something. If it's done, it's done, and that's okay. It did its job. And it's time to just move to the next thing, the next evolution of wherever you're going with the business. So it's not I wouldn't want people to look at that as anything other than it's the next step. It's not failure. It's just the next step.
Right. I love that. Very cool. Hope you guys take some time to think about that and ask yourself that question. We also asked you to prepare another one, and that is, what do you believe is the ultimate question we should be asking in our life? So but this is a little bit more philosophical, a little more deep. So what'd you come up with for this one?
I think this may get asked a bit, and I apologize if it's a bit repetitive from other guests that you have, but who is better because I was here? Who is better because I was here? And I think sometimes...
Why did you choose that?
I chose it because a couple of things. Whenever I'm having my own personal pity party and, I'm not having the best time, or something hasn't worked, or something hasn't gone to plan, I've got some boxes and some folders of the gifts and the messages and the emails and the cards and, the brag box and the brag folders. And so I sit down on the floor, on the carpet, put them all out, and just, I just sort of swim around in the brag box for a bit to boost my ego back up and remind myself that I actually do good things sometimes. Somebody likes me in this world, just to get me out of the pity party. So
I love that.
Yeah. So it hasn't been too long since I had a moment. And so maybe it was sort of bubbling around the surface when you asked me. And it did remind me of a couple of things that where I've had two big moments in one from high school where I repeated the final year of high school. I had too much fun the first time, so I had to go back. And so did another girlfriend who we weren't very close going through high school, but because we were in the repeat year together, we suffered together. And we got on like a house on fire really, really well. And then, as always, we go off on our life, and life happens 20 years later. Then Facebook appears, which then creates every school reunion on the planet. We're using Facebook when that came about. Anyway, we reached out and started talking to each other. And I said, look, let's just get on the phone. And we're chatting away for ages. And then she just went silent. And I went, oh, you still there? Hello, you still there? And she said, I just want to tell you something. And I said, yeah. And I didn't know what was happening, where we were going. I thought we were being lighthearted, talking about our foolish lives and everything we've done. But she went deathly silent and very calm. And she said, oh, Sally, I have to tell you, there was a moment at school that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here now. And it's like, and it bubbles up, or every time I think about it, bubbles up. But it's like, I don't know what I did, because I was a larrikin. I was the class clown. I was the, and maybe that's all it was. I don't know. I didn't even have the presence of mind in that moment to ask, because it just floored me to hear that. Right. And all I could say was, well, I'm so glad that you're still here. And I hope that you've been able to get whatever help you've needed. And so that was kind of, that will always stay with me, of course, and so she is better because I was here. And then the other one is more career related, where I worked with a gentleman for a while in some one-on-one coaching to actually help him move out of people leadership and back into his expertise. So it's actually to get him out of leadership. And so we went through a process together, and he had to do some work at home as well. And about a year after I'd finished working with this person, I get a phone call out of the blue, out of nowhere, from his wife. And she said, "Oh, you don't know me. I'm such and such's wife. I just want to let you know that you saved our marriage." And at first I'm thinking, I don't know who she's talking about. I don't remember, but that's my bad memory. And then she started talking a bit more, and I realized who she was talking about. And then it was like, okay, well, their marriage is better because I was here. And I think sometimes people might hear that and think, oh, she's, all over herself, and think she's all that and then some. But I actually think we need to realize that there are a lot of people who are better because you are here. Now, the chances are 99.9% of them, you'll never know about it. But the reality is there's going to be a lot of people in this world who are better because you are here, and I'm very fortunate that I've had moments where people have reminded me that or been able to share with me, and they've had the courage to also, and the bravery to actually say, that lady didn't need to ring me, that friend didn't need to say that. But I do think we need to remember that when we're out doing the best that we can do day in, day out, that people are better because we are here.
Absolutely. I think it's such a cool idea, and you pointed it almost straight away, that you have your box of things to remind you, and that's sort of a reaction to the question, right? Who is better because I'm here? And there's so much power and joy and fulfillment in creating something like that, so that when times are hard, you have something to fall back on without necessarily having to look outside yourself to find it. And the interesting part is, obviously, it's about having a set of things that remind you of what you've done and your value and the contributions that you've put together and brought to the world, and how powerful that is. And by keeping the question, who is better because I'm here, and having something to turn to, I think it's a beautiful thing. And what a wonderful way to lift yourself up in a very positive fashion, and a way to sort of dust yourself off. And I think that's so important, especially for all of us business owners out there. If you've been on this journey for any period of time, you already know it's hard. You already know that it's lonely at times. You already know that it's unfair at times. And I think, it's so valuable in being able to find and look at the things that you've done and that you've accomplished. I was talking to a colleague of mine yesterday, and I said, "Do you remember that you built that for so-and-so?" And she said, "No, I'd forgotten about that project. I'd forgotten." I said, "Well, they're still doing it today. They're still using that stuff today." And I said, "Did you remember you did this for this other project?" And she said, No, I forgot about that. I only remembered what I didn't finish about it." And I said, "Well, yeah, but they're using it today. They're still implementing and executing on the stuff you did build."
So can I chime in on something just there?
Absolutely.
If that's okay. So there's two things that I'm picking up on. Not only is she now remembering what she completed versus what she didn't complete, but there's also this other layer of you reminding her And so there's someone else also acknowledging, even though that might not have been your intent, or it may have been your intent,
Sure.
she will go away remembering it. And then there'll be this other layer on top of that of how lovely that Michael remembers it too.
Right.
So I think as business owners and leaders, if we've got people reporting to us, what opportunities are you missing simply because you're busy? And no blame, we're all busy. But where is it that you could just plant a few seeds that help people remember what they do achieve, what they are getting done? And even I talk about this a lot. There's outcomes. Yes, we want the outcomes. Yes, we want to hit the goals. We want the profits. We want the KPIs. We want to achieve the success. But there's also the effort along the way. And I think that's a big thing too.
Huge.
When someone is struggling yet putting in effort, that acknowledging that is almost, to the person receiving that acknowledgement, that's almost as good as winning it at the end,
Right. Absolutely. I love it. Beautiful questions. So fun to be able to sit and chat with you about it and talk about what you came up with. And I'm so grateful that you would come and share those with us. Now, you brought something for our guests today, and I'd love you to share with them what you brought for them.
So is that the bag, the goodies?
The goodies, yes, absolutely.
So there's a whole range of goodies that I've put together into a link for you. And there's white papers, there's chapters of books, and I'm also going to add in an extra book in there called The Productive Leader. Now, The Productive Leader is it's not a book that you read from front to back. It's a book you pick up, look at the contents list and go, that's the one I need help with today. So that's the useful field guide. I had someone read it and say, and then she showed me, and she had all these Post-it notes stuck down the side, and she said, I have it on my desk constantly. So that's lovely. So I'll add that in there as well. And I was very, very honored and privileged to have the productivity guru, Brian Tracy, endorse The Productive Leader. So I'm very proud of that work, because if someone like Brian Tracy endorses your book, it must be okay.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much for bringing that for our guests. Guys, you can find the link to get all that great stuff. You can find it in the description below. And as usual, we both encourage you to take some time and think about these questions, maybe write them down or ask yourself them and actually answer them, and really contemplate what Sally has brought for you today in your world. And remember, it's a video. You can pause it and you can play it again. And we would love to hear what you've come up with. We'd love to hear your answers. If you have questions about it, please comment in the comments below, and both Sally and I will be looking at those comments and seeing if you have questions and or you have responses to what you've thought about and what you've answered to these questions. So please comment below and let us know. If you haven't given us a like and a subscribe, please do so, and share it with anybody else that you might think is looking for the ultimate question like we are. We appreciate you so much, Sally. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and bringing your EEI and your wisdom and freely giving it to us on our journey with you.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. I love this concept because it really does make you think a little bit deeper and a little bit wider. And I think the world could do with a little bit more of that. Absolutely.
I agree. All right, guys, get to it. Until next time, remember, 42 is the answer. Keep searching for the ultimate question. And of course, don't panic. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.